For decades, Russia and China have stood together, united by a common goal to challenge US dominance. But something is changing, and fast. Could Russia be reconsidering its alliance with China? And if so, what does this mean for the world? Today, we're diving deep into Trump's bold geopolitical play and why some believe he's setting the stage for a massive power shift. Let's break it all down. For years, Washington has viewed Russia and China as a united front, a powerful force determined to undermine Western influence, a geopolitical partnership built on necessity, not trust. But behind closed doors, Moscow and Beijing don't trust each other as much as they claim. In fact, they've been historical rivals, competitors, even adversaries. Let's go back to the Cold War. In the 1960s, China and the Soviet Union nearly went to war over border disputes. Clashes along the Ussuri River led to deadly skirmishes. Both sides saw each other as the bigger threat, more than even the United States. In 1972, the US used this rivalry to its advantage. Nixon visited Beijing, driving a wedge between China and Moscow. The visit changed history. It split the communist world and helped the US gain the upper hand in the Cold War. And today, Trump might be trying the same strategy, only this time, the stakes are even higher. So the real question is Russia finally waking up? Or is this just another temporary marriage of convenience? Trump isn't just a businessman, he's a deal maker, a strategist. And his approach to global politics has always been clear. Isolate China, pressure its economy, and weaken Beijing's global influence. That's exactly why, under Trump, the US launched a trade war against China in 2018. Tariffs, sanctions, tech bans. The goal? Cut China off from key resources, force American companies to relocate, and disrupt Beijing's long-term economic strategy. But Trump didn't stop there. He openly flirted with the idea of improving US-Russia relations, something unheard of in modern American politics. Remember the 2018 Helsinki summit? Trump met Putin face-to-face. He was criticized for being too friendly with Moscow. But what if he was already laying the groundwork? And if he returns to power in 2024, experts believe he will push for a strategic partnership with Russia to drive China into a corner, to create a scenario where Putin has to choose Beijing or Washington. On the surface, it looks like Russia and China are closer than ever. They signed a no-limits partnership in 2022. They've increased trade and military cooperation. They even conduct joint naval drills in the Pacific. But beneath the surface, there's tension. China's growing dominance over Russia-China now buys Russian oil and gas at discounted prices, essentially forcing Russia into an economic dependency. Russia once sold energy to Europe at premium rates. Now, it's at China's mercy. Russian nationalists, they hate this. They see Russia as a great power, an empire, and they don't want to be reduced to China's raw material supplier. Russia fears becoming China's junior partner. Beijing has massive ambitions in Central Asia, a region Moscow has long considered its backyard. In places like Kazakhstan, China's economic influence is growing, making Russia nervous. Chinese companies are investing in infrastructure, energy, and trade. And in Moscow, that's setting off alarm bells. Military mistrust. Despite their friendship, Russia refuses to sell China its most advanced weapons. Why? Because Moscow doesn't trust Beijing. China has a history of reverse engineering Russian military technology. Once they get their hands on Russian designs, they copy them, improve them, and mass produce them. So now the question becomes, is Russia looking for a way out, or is it too late? Then came Ukraine. When Putin invaded, he expected a quick victory, a blitzkrieg-style campaign. Kyiv would fall in days, but 2 years later, sanctions are crippling Russia's economy. The military is bleeding resources, and China is playing both sides. Yes, Beijing buys Russian oil, but it also refuses to send weapons. Why? Because China doesn't want to provoke the West too much. They're thinking long-term, watching, calculating. Putin is realizing something. China is looking out for itself, not Russia. So now, Some experts believe Moscow is quietly reaching out to Washington, not publicly, not officially, but behind the scenes, and this is where things get interesting. In early 2024, reports surfaced about backdoor discussions between Russian and American officials. The topic? A possible peace deal over Ukraine. And if that happens, Russia could cut a deal with the US, reduce its dependency on China, and regain some economic stability. But there's a catch. Putin doesn't want to look weak. He doesn't want to be seen as abandoning an ally. So these talks, they're happening quietly, carefully. So what would Trump do in this situation? Simple. Offer Putin a deal he can't refuse, a way out, a path forward, without losing face. If Trump wins in 2024, his strategy will be crystal clear. End the Ukraine war to pull Russia away from China, ease some sanctions to lure Moscow back toward the West, pressure Beijing even harder with more tariffs and military buildup in the Pacific. And there's one more piece to this puzzle: India. Trump has already praised India as a key US ally. And India, it has its own issues with China. If Trump strengthens ties with New Delhi, Russia may see a new path, one where it doesn't have to depend solely on China. In other words, Trump might try to flip Putin against Xi. Sound crazy? Not really. It's exactly what Nixon did 50 years ago, and history has a way of repeating itself. If Russia abandons China, the consequences would be massive. Beijing would be isolated, forced to face the US and its allies alone. The global economy would shift as China loses a key strategic partner, and the world would enter a new era of power struggles. But let's be real. Putin is unpredictable. In Beijing, they're watching every move. So the biggest question remains: will Russia really turn its back on China? Or is this just another geopolitical illusion? And what happens if China strikes first? A trade war? A military escalation? A technological arms race? One thing is certain: the world is shifting fast, and the US needs to be ready. What do you think? Is Trump secretly planning to pull Russia away from China? Will Putin abandon Xi to cut a better deal with the US? And if this happens, what will China do next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into global power shifts. This is Econ Atlas, bringing you the truth behind the headlines. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode.